Hello, everybody. This is Barbara Drazga with Ecom Insights and Deal Diva Wholesale, and today I am interviewing the amazing Tim Jordan from Hickory.
Overrated.
Our topic today is, and this is one of several interviews that I'm doing with Tim because he's got so much content about brand building and importing from different countries and sourcing products that you can put your own brand on, that it required us doing multiple webinars. So today we're going to talk about success stories of private label sellers. So Tim, I'm going to just introduce you and then just jump in so we can get as much content in as we can during this hour.
Okay.
And again, I'm Barbara Drazga, and I am the publisher of ecominsights.com. You can go to ecomminsights.com and sign up for the free newsletter. And what I do is give my editorial feedback and input on things happening in the e-commerce and Amazon seller marketplace. And I'm also the creator of the Bundle Masterclass. So I have a unique approach to doing customer-centric research and identifying niche markets and passions and problems so we can create products to meet customers' needs based on market research first. So enough about me. More importantly, let's get into introducing Tim Jordan, the owner of Hickory Flats. Tim, go ahead and tell everybody what Hickory Flats does and what your background is.
Yep. So we do primarily sourcing, logistics, FBA prep, and warehousing for private label sellers. I myself am a private label seller. Got a lot of history in procurement and logistics prior to getting involved in e-commerce. And I'm kind of an outside of the box guy. I do a lot of traveling. I'm constantly at conferences learning. I'm involved in a lot of mastermind networking stuff, just trying to soak in as much knowledge as I can. But I take a lot of the information that I get from seeing what my clients are doing currently. And that's, at least a few hundred private label sellers, watching what they're doing, what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong. And then kind of compiling all this information, chewing it up and spitting it back out at whoever is willing to listen. Hopefully we can help some folks along the way.
And just as a caveat is how Tim and I know each other. I sought him out because I've been upping my game in my private label business, and I'm about 80% bundles, which is a form of private label, but I wanted to up my game and really own the product. And so I interviewed Tim and his team and decided to work with him. Not only hiring engaging with his company to use their services, but also he's invited me to be part of his mastermind team for an upcoming China trip in September 2018. And it's currently just a September trip that I'm available. So when you join us for the China trip, you'll also get me. I don't actually have a coaching program yet because I'm so darn busy with my travel and running my multiple businesses and building multiple businesses that you will also get me in the mix when you join that September China trip. So I just wanted to throw that in there as how do we know each other? So I'm going to go ahead and let you take over the screen and do what you do. I'm going to stop the share here and go ahead and talk to us about the topic today, which is successful sellers on.
So if you're watching this a couple days ago, I kind of beat up a lot of people's preconceived notions. It was almost. Is it showing my face?
Yes, it is. I just took my face off there because they shouldn't be watching me.
Yeah. So basically what happened is I beat up a lot of preconceived notions. I kind of tore some holes in what a lot of mainstream private label coaching and techniques are teaching. And I don't do that just to criticize. I really see a huge problem in a lot of the things people are doing. So we talked about the 6-month time gap, the time where information looks good. A validation tool might be saying that a private label product will work, but it takes 6 months to really source, get your factory samples, and launch that thing. And a lot of people are seeing that same content in those 6 months, or that same information in those 6 months, but you can't see that they've ordered. So there could literally be millions of a certain item on the water right now coming from China, and you don't realize that, and you're starting the sourcing process. We talked about too much reliance on software, the software that oftentimes uses a lot of information on sales data, which just means you play follow the leader. And then playing into that follow the leader, so many times we as humans are using past people's success as validation that something will work. So we don't want to step off the cliff first. We want to make sure a few people have tested the waters, they didn't drown, and now we're going to try it. But again, that leads to the problem of playing follow the leader. You get in saturated projects or products. So today I want to give some insight and some validation that private label can be done correctly, and it's not that hard. See, a lot of people think that if you're not just buying something off Alibaba and put a sticker on it. The only other option is to actually invent something, which can be expensive. You got to go through patents, and you got to go through, this mountain list of issues to launch this product. What I'm going to show you today is there's a lot of in between. So there are actionable, fairly easy processes that you can go through to launch a private label product that's not just somebody else's stuff with a sticker, may not be on Amazon yet. So I'm going to start going through some of those kind of, I don't know if you should call them case studies, examples, but we're going to start going through some of those now.
Yeah, I think case study is a good way to define it.
All right. So I assume everybody knows what this is. This bad boy right here, this it's called a Rambler. It's made by a company called Yeti. If you're not familiar with Yeti, then you have either never been in a Walmart outdoor goods store, or you're hiding under a rock. So this cup back in like 2015 stormed the market in Q4. Every sporting goods store was selling these things for like 60, 70 bucks. Gift stores, Walmarts, Targets, everything could not keep them in stock. And it's an amazing cup. It's a stainless steel, basically bomb-proof cup, double wall insulated with a plastic lid that literally keeps ice like forever. I could fill that thing up with ice, go put it in my truck, leave it outside, 95-degree Alabama heat all day, come back and there's still ice in it. Really, really cool product. So this product, this Yeti cup, I'm trying to navigate some of these pop-ups. This Yeti cup is nothing extremely unique, okay? Basically what happened is about 15 years ago, there was an Australian like camping goods manufacturer that was looking at these, they're called Tervis tumblers. I suspect that most people are familiar with these. It's a double wall plastic cup, and a lot of variations of them you can get stuff inside, like these little badges or stuff like this. These have been in gift shops for 20 years. They work pretty well. They are insulated, so they're not at least going to get condensation on your hands if you have ice in them, not going to burn you if you have hot coffee. So basically what this guy in Australia did is he said, wow, I need a bomb-proof version of that. The shape looks very similar to this, right? Basically the same thing. Even the lid is fairly similar. So this guy has been selling these things in Australia, did not know how to market them, did not know how to get them out in mass. Basically was just sitting on a gold mine, didn't know what to do with it. So this company Yeti is primarily coolers, all right? They make these huge, amazing coolers that are like $300 or $400 sometimes. And they have these like these rubber latches that close them. So the Yeti guys from Texas, they took a little trip over to China, and they were looking for a factory to manufacture these rubber latches for them. While they were there, one of their product development guys goes into just one of the markets like I like to go to, just these odds and ends markets all over China. And literally on the bottom shelf, back corner, dusty, is this stainless steel, what he was calling a Tervis tumbler at the time. He said, that's really, really cool. And what it was is the factory that was making these things for the Australian guy just had a bunch left over and was selling with these markets. So the guy buys like a case of them, takes them back in his luggage, gives them to office staff there in his office in Texas, and they worked amazingly. They were awesome. So they weren't looking for this product. They just happened to find it. So they determined that, hey, this is something that we can throw as just an inexpensive add-on to our coolers. Maybe we'll do them as giveaways. If you buy one of our $300 or $400 coolers, we give you one of these cups. So they went back. They found the factory that was making them, one of the factories. They had the lid a little bit redesigned, and I'll come back to that in a second, to that notorious lid, and started selling the heck out of them, and they went ballistic. I've got the numbers somewhere, but in like 2015, they at wholesale price sold like $21 million worth of these cups. All right, so retail price was about 50 or 60 bucks, wholesale price about 20. That is a ton of cups. So in 2015, they were manufacturing these things with like 14 or 15 different factories in China just to keep up. They were air shipping these things in Q4. It was crazy, right? Now, did they do anything super and unique to find the success? Well, of course they did some, really awesome marketing. They did a lot of work on the, the product research, the brand awareness, all that good stuff. But what really sold this cup is how well it worked, and it was nothing magical. Everybody's grandpa has one of these, or had one of these shoved in his garage somewhere. This thing was first patented by the Stanley Company in 1916. 1916, over 100 years ago. What's great about this thing is that it uses the double wall vacuum insulation. Okay, so inside of this metal tube, it has the here goes some marks. It has this glass canister with a vacuum between the glass and the metal, right? Nothing patent or nothing special about this thing for the last 100 years. It's an old design. The patent has completely expired on that. So basically, when Yeti decided they had this completely awesome product, they actually went and started filing lawsuits against knockoff competitors. It turns out they couldn't uphold any of the patents, right? So they first started filing lawsuits against the shape of the cup. Well, of course, there's Tervis, right? You can't file a lawsuit against an existing shape. They couldn't file a lawsuit against the patent on the vacuum technology because it's been there since 1916.
Hey, Tim, I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead and stop your screen share and then start it again. Somebody's drawing on your screen, and that'll wipe it out.
Got it.
There you go. Hey guys, do me a favor and don't write or like move your mouse around with the left button. Yeah, don't write on the screen while we're doing the presentation. Thanks, I appreciate it. Go for it.
All right. So here's my point. They couldn't even hold up with all the money they had. They could not hold up this lawsuit against this thing because it was not patentable. So let me walk you back through all that to summarize. Remember, I'm here to encourage you that there are ways to find new products without inventing something and without the same crap that everybody else is selling. So 2015, beginning of 2015, none of us had ever heard of this cup, right? Nobody had to go reinvent this cup. Nobody from Yeti had to do a ton of market research for this. They literally got off their butts, went to a market in China, and accidentally found this product, right? Now, we know that there are a lot of knockoffs to this, correct? You go into every Walmart, there's an Ozark Trail. There's Orca, there's Arctic, there's a million different brands. If you literally type in stainless steel mug in Amazon, there's a million of them. But this bad boy right here is still sitting at the top of the search results. For the 30-ounce plain tumbler, I think I looked the other day, it had like 1,900 reviews with an average of 4.8 stars. Like ridiculous, amazing. And, even though there are knockoffs, because they got there first, they're holding that spot. And now everybody thinks of it as the Yeti cup, right? So long story short, just to give a little encouragement, these guys did not manufacture this thing from the beginning. They did not invent it. They did not have to produce it. They can't even patent it. But they took an item that was not in the market in the US yet, right? So I told you this guy was distributing these in Australia. That's how I found these things. But they literally went to China, went to a market, found this thing. Really, really cool. Since then, let me show you another cool product that I was actually involved with from the get-go. I told you there's different places to go to find these product ideas, and I'll get more into that in a different webinar where we have a little more time. But check this thing out. This is paracord. All right, paracord, everybody's seen like the paracord arts and crafts people are doing. Well, some guy decided, hey, I can make this really cool handle for this cup because these giant cups didn't have a handle. Cool, right? Nice, cool design, nice and sleek. It's got to be inexpensive. Check these out. So a guy a couple years ago comes to me and says, hey, I've seen this Yeti tumbler take off like crazy. It works really, really well. Let's put a handle on that thing. And I was talking to him and I said, yeah, we can do all sorts of, prototype manufacturing. There's a lot of stuff we can do. And then I backed up and I said, wait a second. Like I'm breaking my own rules. Let's find an easy solution. So we literally went with our China sourcing team and started searching for a external handle for those Tervis tumblers. Okay, same shape. Of course, they made them. So all we did is we went to a factory, sent them a Yeti cup and said, can you redesign this a little bit? They said, absolutely. So now you can see that these are super saturated, which I know, we don't want to get into saturated stuff. This is just an example to show you that you don't have to have a product that's on Amazon yet. You shouldn't be going to Jungle Scout and seeing what 25 other people are doing well. Like, think outside the box. So literally, my buddy goes to Pinterest, finds this thing. It completely blows up when he orders his first 4,000 off of from China, and we sell them in. And of course, this is saturated, right? I'm not going to tell you which one my buddy's is, but I'll tell you that his profit margin is somewhere around 700%. 700% ROI, and he's selling somewhere in the neighborhood of 600 of these things every 2 weeks, and he's absolutely killing it. And he has a lot of good reviews organically. So, again. The other day it was kind of discouraging. I was telling you how difficult it was. I'm trying to show you that it's not entirely difficult if you get out of the box and start thinking outside of the box a little bit. Okay, so the Yeti cup, and I call this the Yeti principle. I've spoken on some other podcasts about the Yeti principle, which literally states you don't have to invent something and you don't have to follow the leader of everybody else. Like, there is an in-between. So now let me go to a new example that I've been kind of following and studying for a long time, and I've never shared it with anybody. So this is kind of the first. Does anybody know what the nose Frida is? I am certain that if there are parents in here that you have seen this. The first time I had a kid, my wife comes back from the pediatrician with this goofy looking tube. And I said, what is that? She said, well, this is what we're going to suck snot out of our kid's nose with. And I was like, nope, we are not going to suck snot out of our kid's nose. Like, what if it gets in our mouth? And I was literally like losing my mind over the grossest thing I'd ever seen. Well, the original, snot sucker was these little suction bulbs that didn't work worth a hoot. They were terrible. Have you seen this thing, Barbara? You know what this is?
No, but I'm going to go register snotsucker.com.
Well, you are, I promise. Yeah. So this little mouthpiece you put in your mouth, okay? And you shove this in the kid's nose.
Oh, God.
Right? You see how that goes? Now, what's great about our lungs is our lungs cannot create enough negative pressure to harm a child, but we can do extended negative pressure. So those little snot sucker bulbs that you squeeze that don't work, like this thing, you can get down and dirty. You can start sucking snot. Now, sucking snot is not a glamorous thing. Like, nobody wants to be involved with sucking snot, right?
But it solves a problem.
It solves a problem. Now, let me check these chats. I use it on my little kids. It's used in hospitals with a pump. Yes, you can get a pump version. I will come out. I'll answer some of these other questions later. Anyways, all right. So people that are familiar with the nose Frida, my wife was a labor and delivery nurse, and she was literally recommending this to every patient that she had. And the thing really works. Like, it is awesome. So when I got into e-commerce, I started getting this private label thing. I started kind of wrapping around to the concept of finding these products. And I came back to this thing and found out that it's become like a multi-million dollar company. I wanted to figure out, how did this person find this thing? Okay. The website literally tells the story. Born in Sweden. Okay. So literally this Swedish doctor invents this thing, right? There's a couple Americans that go over to a European market. They're walking around and they find this goofy, disgusting snot tube, and they say, let's bring it over and let's try to sell it. The folks that did that was able to get the patent transfer to them because the Swedish doctor didn't know what he had. They granted him exclusivity like in Europe, but now in the U.S., they own the patent to this thing in the U.S. and are literally selling millions and millions and millions of this thing every year. They did not invent it. They did not find it online. They did not find this thing on Jungle Scout or the equivalent of whatever else people use. They literally had to get off their tail, go to a market, start looking off of e-commerce in general, and find it. So, Frida Baby. Basically, what this has turned into is a massive cash cow for them. And now other people are coming to them with ideas. So this is one of the things that they have just released, giving kids medicine through a syringe they hate, but they basically just combined a pacifier to it. They did not invent this. Once they got this brand going, they literally just started looking on like Pinterest and Etsy and like trying to figure out life hacks for babies and are coming up with these great ideas, right? Really, really cool. So right now, Nose Frida is, they've been valued at, a very, very solid, like 8-figure valuation, and they're only a few years old and literally did not invent the thing. So that's my point, is that there are so many solutions for products that we don't have to come up with on our own. We can literally just go out and find what other people are doing, repurpose them, bring them into our economy essentially, or bring them into our marketplace and get there first. And if we're able to patent that stuff, that's awesome. So there you go. 2 extremely, extremely good examples that there is hope for us, because I know it does get very, very frustrating to hear all the failure stories, and to hear guys like me get up and say, oh, quit using Jungle Scout, because, obviously, like I talked about the other day, we can get this massive slide of oversaturation just following the leader. So that's a whole lot of content. Let me pause for a second and answer some questions. Barbara, I suspect you have one at least.
Actually, I'm just over here. I'm amazed. This is awesome. This is platinum.
Yeah. So
we're going to save questions for the end of the webinar. So go ahead and put them in the chat. I want Tim, since we've corralled him for this hour, to give us as much content as possible, and then we can answer questions towards the end, and also continue those question answering in the Facebook group.
Australia and Sweden. There you go. So.
Well, a piggyback on this is some sort of product for during allergy season, 2-3 times a year. Oh, I'm miserable. Could modify this product for adults somehow. I know there are neti pots, etc., but I'm just saying, how else? I'm asking questions like, how else can you use this product? In what other areas can you use it? Maybe in the pet space, in the adult space, in the elderly space, right? How can you create different versions of this product to solve a similar problem for different markets?
Yeah, and I'm sure that, this specific product has been really, really patented. You'd have to be careful. But 3 years ago, nobody had heard of this thing. So essentially, here's the point that, and I'll dive deeper into it, but that I want to get back to today, is that there are items, millions of items, that don't have to be invented that you can find. Now, Amazon, so I was at a conference a couple days ago and listened to one of the vice presidents of Amazon get up and speak. And they're doing a mountain of research, and what they've determined is that only about 13% of the world's unique products are on Amazon. 14%. That means there are mountains of other things out there. I was recently, a few Saturdays ago, this is one thing I like to do. Literally had one day, Saturday morning, get up at like 5, hopped on a plane, went to a different city, and went to a trade show. I was on the ground for 3 hours. Now, I know that in the Amazon space, we talk a lot about trade shows. Primarily, we're talking about getting wholesale accounts. Like, you go and you get these wholesale accounts. I don't do that. Even when I was in wholesale, if you're at a trade show, everybody else is there. But literally what I did is I walked around to this artisanal trade show and found items that people were making. And, hey, Barbie, you need to mute yourself. I can hear your keyboard.
Sorry.
What they were doing is they were making these things like in the garage, artisanal stuff in their workshops, have no interest in monetizing that thing and blowing up full scale. And in I think I was there for 3 hours, and I called my partner, my private label business, like 2 rows in, and I said, I just spent, like $200 and I bought like 9 samples. She said, what are you going to do with 9 samples? I said, it's all unique products. Literally none of those are on Amazon, right? Not just trade shows, little stuff like, what are they called? Like flea markets. There's a lot of items out there that people are creating and have no clue that e-commerce even exists. Well, we're in a very Amazon or e-commerce centric circles, right? I come to work every day and I'm talking e-commerce. A lot of you are in the same Facebook groups talking e-commerce. We're thinking about e-commerce constantly. The world is not thinking about e-commerce yet. They don't have a clue it's out there. Those nose Frida folks, they literally in a B2B trade show had no idea to even test that thing and put it online. I was at this licensing expo 2 days ago up in Vegas, and I sat down with a brand owner who literally is dying for products to put his brand on. His brand has over 1 million followers on his Facebook page. He has over, I think, every day he's getting 14,000 tweets with his stuff tagged in it. It's a name brand you guys would know, but they're dying for products to put it on. There's a giant gap between the available products and the demand for products and e-commerce sellers like us. Another thing that I got out of this whole thing at the Amazon or at the licensing expo when the Amazon VP got on was they announced some stuff, this merch collab thing, and basically what they're talking about is their reliance on third-party sellers. And even Amazon understands that we can find products that mainstream economy can't. Like, we as third-party sellers are in the trenches digging around. We're looking on different sites. We're in these trade shows. We're going to these these silly artisanal craft shows and stuff, and we're finding products that they aren't, that the big box stores aren't, right? Toys R Us is closed. Sears is closed. Kmart's closed. Like, all of this big box stores are disappearing, and they used to be the ones doing the work on research. They used to be the ones that were going to these little niche specific markets or, following patents, stuff like that, and determining new products that were going to be in demand and launching them. As that falls kind of disappears, that opportunity of these big businesses falls, it creates an enormous opportunity for us. And things like the Yeti Cup, I know that's a really, really big story. The Nose Frida, these are, multi-million dollar companies now. But I literally have customers that are consistently finding products by not looking on Amazon. I've got some in this chat right now that I'm working with that send us a product. I've never heard of this thing. It's completely new to me. You look on Amazon, there's nothing like it, but you go look in these other circles and it's all over the place. I'm going in September to the Philippines to a trade show there. Why am I going to the Philippines? Because nobody else is doing it. And there are Filipino products being produced that are unique that need to be coming to the U.S. That's why I set up this company in Central America, because there are products being made in places like that are unique to Chinese manufacturing and unique to the U.S. e-commerce marketplace. So all in all, really wanted to give some encouragement here. Most of you that know me know that I was a full-time firefighter EMT. Okay. It was my dream job. Freaking loved it. It was awesome. Who didn't love doing it, right? And last September, I took an early retirement after 10 years of that. Lost a really solid salary, lost all my health insurance, lost my retirement. And I did it because of the opportunities that are coming up in e-commerce. And I really think that they're huge. I think they're game changers. But one thing that always interested me in the fire department is, it's a very male heavy job, or that sounded weird, male heavy job. It's very saturated with men. Obviously, it's kind of a manly job, you'd think, right? And one of the ways to get this job, or one of the ways to qualify this job, is you had to go through a physical test, this physical agility test, they called it. And it was a nightmare. You had to go on these stair climbers with like a 70-pound weighted vest. You do that for 3 minutes to boost your cardio up. Then you have to drag hoses and pick up chainsaws and raise ladders. And very, very physical. You had to drag a 160-pound dummy, like full-size dummy, across this parking lot, around some cones, and all the way back, crawl through these tunnels. Nightmare, right? What always killed me was seeing these like 200-pound muscle-up guys that couldn't pull it off. Like they would fail before the time expired and couldn't do it. But every year there was always like 110, 115-pound female that would come in there and just smoke this thing, right? They would just blow through it. And they'd usually get hired and turn out to be some of the best firefighters out there. And it was all because of their mentality. Like it was all in their mind. These women that were much smaller than this dummy shouldn't have been able to pull this off, right? They should have walked in that room, seen all these big jacked up, ex-college athletes and said, there's no way I can pass this test if they're having trouble, but they didn't do that. And I see so much correlation in what we're doing. We as e-commerce sellers, in the big scheme of things, could easily walk into the room, which is the market, and say, wow, these other folks are bigger than us. Like they're so much more qualified. And I do too. I get discouraged. I even see some of these case studies I'm giving out. Like I look at the Yeti and I look at Nose Frida, and I look at these things and go, well, crap, I missed the boat. They're already on it. But we need to be like those little women. Really, that's a weird analogy. We need to be those little women that just don't care. Like we want it more. But we're also in a better position because we are more agile. Like we have something to prove to people, right? But we're given the exact same tools that they are. We just have to figure out how to manipulate them a little differently and get that job done. And nobody's watching us. If let's see, if Mattel, so like I know some of the executives at some of these big toy companies, right? And one of the biggest frustrations they have is when they go to launch something, everybody in the world is watching. If Spin Master comes out with a new toy, there's going to be 800 knockoffs in every country within a month because people know to watch for them. I've got buddies that are in the toy and game space that are developing their own unique stuff that used to work for those corporations, and nobody's watching them. Like we are flying into the radar. We're the people that nobody assumes anything out of, which gives us tremendous opportunity. And I'm circling around to some of those questions like that Yeti handle. We can do things without notice that people that the big guys can't. People ask me about patents all the time. Hey Tim, if I'm gonna launch this new product, should I get a patent? Should I get a trademark? I say you've got time. Like you want to test this thing. When my buddy wanted to test that Yeti cup handle, we tested it before we even started working on a patent, which it was declined anyways because Tervis already had it, right? But because he's a small guy, nobody's watching that. Like you don't have that super high competition from the get-go that people are looking for. Now, let me, since it seems like I've kind of talked about some what's I'm looking for? Some competing, kind of some contradicting data. I want to go back and review this. So Tuesday.
Do me a favor and
Yep.
stop your screen share so we can just see your face.
Okay, you're tired of looking at Chelsea?
Yeah, we want to focus on you.
Oh, great. That's better. All right, cool. So Tuesday we talked about this race to the bottom, right? Everybody's following the same stuff. Everybody is getting in saturated markets. And I agree with that. I think it's a huge problem. I'm also talking about finding unique products, bring it to the market that aren't patented, right? Like we don't have to patent these items. We don't have to invent it. When I was talking about my rocket ship analogy, right, we spend this tremendous amount of fuel, energy, resources, money to blast up out of, gravity's hold, which is our competition, get to that page one. One cool thing about these products is if you can be the first to page one, if you can be the first one to gain notoriety, the Yeti cups, you can stay there. Now, I wouldn't knock off this Yeti handle now because there's so many other people doing it. You see that, right? But if you go back to the Yeti handles and search, find the guy that has the highest price point and the largest number of views, and that's my buddy. So you can, by being the first to the market, even though you can't protect it and keep people knocked off, like I said, the Yeti company tried to sue all these other companies for patent infringement. It was all denied. It's completely fair game. Everybody's going to knock off for it. But they're still the ones selling those things for $40. I have been in factories where they make Yetis. I can buy the exact same cup in the packaging for less than like 70 cents a piece. Less than 70 cents a piece. And they're selling it for, depending on the color, like all the way up to $60 still. And they're still whipping everybody in sales volume. So to answer that question, you're talking about the Yeti handle. How do you keep people from knocking it off? You don't. You can't. It doesn't matter, though. Once you have solidified yourself as one of those solid top-ranking products based on the number of reviews, just how long it's been there, your overall velocity, and if you can take that one step further and actually get your name attached to it like Yeti, Kleenex. Nobody at Kleenex patented nose tissue, right? But we all think of it as Kleenex because it was the first there. So while you're looking at this stuff, understand that if you find a golden goose, like if you find that unicorn product at a trade show in Europe or on Pinterest that you can have reproduced easily, understand that you're going to have some competition if you do it well. Take that as a compliment, right? If you can get it trademarked or patented, and that's a whole other conversation, in a way that protects that, like Nose Free did, so they were actually able to buy the rights to have the patent done in the US, that's great. But as long as you don't do anything boneheaded like run out of inventory and let 20 other people catch you, you can be the Yeti cup or you can be the Yeti handle that is still the highest price, top selling one on there and still have really good ROIs. And then let other people follow you. But then you're not playing follow the leader, you are the leader, right? You've heard me for 2 webinars now talk about playing follow the leader. If you get yourself in position to be the locomotive on that train, I don't care how many people are caboosing it behind me. Like they may be stealing some of my velocity, some of my traction. I may lose some sales to them. Big deal. There's nothing you can do about it. Just appreciate the fact that you're number 1, maybe number 2 on that page, worst case scenario. But you can absolutely do that. You can get there because we are the small guy. No one's watching us and hold those spots for a very long time. So you can launch products that other people are going to copy, but you may have months of traction before anybody else knows it's out there. And then it's very hard for them to catch up. We're looking at products right now, or I am, where there are people like have launched a product that's high in demand. There's only one on Amazon, and you can see in like their Keepa charts and stuff that they've been selling at that same price for 3 years, right? And nobody else is doing it, and their product is terrible. Like they're the engine on that train, right? They don't even have a following yet, and they've actually got a lot of sales volume. They're selling 600, 700, 800 units a month, and nobody's even copied them yet for whatever reason. So that is my challenge today: is to not be discouraged by the bad information out there, telling everybody to follow these paths that make you the caboose on the end of the train. And I had a lot of people comment from Tuesday's webinar about that. Holy cow, Tim, you just scared me. Had somebody on here talking today. Well, what you said actually changed my decision on what my next step was. That's great, but I want to behoove you to not be discouraged. Like there are so many other options out there. We don't have enough time to get into today, but the next piece of content that Barbara and I are going to get out is actionable places to look for these things. And I've kind of hinted about some of them today, trade shows, different places online that are not Amazon, but there are a lot of them out there. And I'm going to literally give you step by step. Like when I'm wanting to find new product, these are the things I do, the steps I take, the places that I go to start searching for these things. And it is not uncommon to find those items out there that nobody even knows exist on Amazon and be the first one. Colby just asked that same question. Yeah, way too much information here today. We will get into that. I think, Barbara, tomorrow we're going to do that. Is that accurate?
Yes, that is correct. I was just writing that in the chat. Tomorrow, stay tuned, guys. We are going to do a reveal of, it may or may, we're going to do an hour. It may go a little bit over an hour depending on how much content you have, Tim. But we do promise an hour of, okay, so let's pull back the curtain. Where do we find these things? Where do we find the trade shows? How do we determine what products to look into to sourcing? And that'll be tomorrow at 11 a.m. Pacific. And just look for your email to make sure you're signed up for that webinar. So
can I go through some of these chats now and try to get caught up? Ryan, going back to that nose Freddy, you're talking about the Windy. I had forgotten about that, but the Windy is a really cool product for kids with gas. And literally, like I've listened to a lot of interviews by that lady Chelsea that runs Nose Frida, and literally what she said is, this stuff is gross and nobody likes to do it, but there's a huge demand. I don't care if it's gross, if it sells, if I can create this cult following behind it, and solve a problem, great. That Windy thing, they sell a lot of those things, and that isn't anything like mind-numbingly new. Like this is kind of a gross product, but a lot of demand for it. Let me go through replays. Okay, so the Yeti handle being copied by so many. How does it affect the sales? So that's actually a really good question, because I realized I just said, hey, as long as you can get to the top, some of your traction will be diminished. There's a correlation between number of competitors jumping on something and how much demand there is for the product. Okay, so yeah, when he was the first one selling that handle, he had no competition, but not a lot of people knew about it. As more and more people knew about it, the demand actually increased. So it kind of offset. So he never really lost any sales because everybody was aware of that. Now the mailman sees, somebody mowing their grass with it. Now he wants to go get one. So don't be too discouraged when you find this Yeti product of your own to start seeing some competition. That also means there's probably a really good opportunity for more brand awareness or product awareness of your product. And hopefully that demand will increase too. So as long as you've got something that fits a need, I think that there's kind of a parallel growth between competition and demand, which should offset that. Let me think. Tim Heiser, going to EWU this fall. Yes, I have a lot of tips for that. I'll actually touch on that tomorrow. I'm going to talk a lot about EWU. I will say EWU is kind of a magical place if you know what you're doing, and I will make kind of a what's the word I'm looking for? A confession to you. I went to EWU on three different occasions before I actually bought anything from there, because I was making some really boneheaded mistakes in my approach. I was listening to the gurus and didn't know how to. I call them gurus. A lot of this typical private label production methods, development, and walked away from there not knowing what to do. So I will get into that actually tomorrow. You will actually enjoy that. Tim, what was first, the egg or the chicken? Every product starts with a need to resolve a need. It doesn't start in Amazon. Build it and people will come. Absolutely, Yuri. And so here's another thing. You don't just have to look at products. You can look at needs. Like, don't just look at other products that are out there. Look at needs. If you go to places like Reddit, you can actually run searches on what people are looking for. Go to things like life hacks, and people will actually ask, hey, does anybody have a solution to this? So yes, resolve a problem, and people will come to it. Use Amazon to launch it. Going through here. Yes, Alvin from the Philippines. So I'm looking at going to the Manila. There's some sort of Manila trade show in the middle of September, and nobody's going there. And as the prices in China, some of the stuff for commodities are increasing, I want to start finding out not just other places to use for sourcing, but also places with ideas, because there's a lot of ideas out there. Reminisce.
And while you're reading those, I wanted to let everybody know that I actually did a video on how to find fanatical niche markets, and I'm dropping the link in the chat. It's at bundlemasterclass.com. At the top, there is a link for sample lessons, and you can actually watch my lesson on how I determine fanatical niche markets.
Okay. Fernando, what's up, buddy? Fernando is joining us from Guatemala. How do you know there is a market in Amazon? So I don't always, and it actually doesn't, it doesn't bother me all the time, because if I can find demand off of Amazon, I know that people will come to Amazon. So let's talk about the fidget spinners. Everybody knows about those things, right? Now, the fidget spinner was actually patented by a lady who developed them for autistic children years ago. Since she didn't know how to market it and monetize it, she actually owned that patent for 7 years and let it expire. Here's what's crazy. About 3 years ago, I was in China, and I was going through a big market, and I was seeing these fidget spinners everywhere. The kids were playing with them, the adults were playing with them, people were trying to sell them to me, and I said, no, nobody wants that. How do I know? Because I went to Amazon, and there was none. There's no listings for fidget spinners, and Jungle Scout didn't say it was a good idea, and ViralLaunch didn't say it was a good idea. So I dismissed it. How dumb was that? I could have been like the guy first page when all that thing was going crazy. But there was obviously demand for the product without it being on Amazon. So Fernando, let me answer that in two ways. Just because there's not a product on Amazon doesn't mean there's not demand. And I prefer Helium-10, and I use their product Cerebro. So I was actually kind of in a round table a couple days ago, some Amazon gurus, and looking at some content tools or some research tools. And I still think that the Cerebro is probably the best out there. There are products that I'll research every once in a while that there is not a single product on Amazon to match it, but you might have 5, 10, 20. We found one recently with 60,000 searches a month on the top main 3 keywords for this, and not a single product on Amazon. There is the case, Fernando, where you could go in and not find demand on Amazon, but I'm okay with that, because a lot of things go viral in other places before they do in the marketplaces, okay? If I was smart enough to have checked off of Amazon for those fidget spinners, I would have seen that they were starting to trend up in places like Pinterest and Etsy and on Reddit and in these different, blogs and stuff about teachers saying, hey, my kids are getting these things and I don't know what to how to stop them. So look off of Amazon. Don't be scared if there is no demand immediately on Amazon, but there's a lot of stuff being searched for in Amazon with no products. If it's the first one on Amazon, how do you see? Oh, same question, same guy. Okay. How much upfront do you have to jump into a new product, Colby? It completely depends. This is not a get-rich-quick scheme. This is not something simple. Private label is tough. I mean, it's not easy. And I even see people that find these great products that get to the market with too little inventory, and they keep running out of inventory. They lose that velocity. So even though they're first to the market, they're not going to hold their position. So this is not something that you can start with $200 or $300. The amount of money depends completely on the product. Is this a $200 product? Or is it a $5 product? Is it a $1 product? One thing that I like to do before I jump in too deep is, of course, you can test stuff. I can use pay-per-click testing to send in a product similar to the one that I'm going to sell. So if my product's unique, but it might serve the same niche, I can buy 5 of something off eBay, right? Set up a unique ASIN, jack the price up so people don't actually buy it, run pay-per-click testing, and I can find out how many impressions I get for certain keywords, which tells me how search demand, but also check your cost per click. Your cost per click is going to tell you how much competition you have for those keywords. So if I'm running something that I'm getting a lot of impressions for 5 cents a click, nobody else is bidding on it, like it's wide open. Then, yeah, I might have to, for an initial production run, spend 2 or 3 months and get prototypes developed and actually build this thing out and have to buy a large MOQ, but I'll do it with a lot more confidence because I know there is demand and no competition yet. I suggest Pinterest or Etsy to find the product that I need. Yes, that is part of my toolbox that I will definitely get into tomorrow. Can I buy small quantities from China for testing new product ideas? Absolutely. You can buy, well, it depends on what product it is and how you're sourcing, but it's not uncommon to buy a product similar to the ultimate one that I want to produce in a small quantity just to test it. And then if it tests out well, then even at a loss, like if I had to pay too much for a small quantity, then I at least have it validated without jumping in too deep. in Iowa, we have small gift shows. Would that be a great place to find products? Yes, yes, yes. Go to those gift shows. There are items not on Amazon. There are people that are making things in small batches that are high in demand. You've just got to reverse engineer that thing, have it produced. Or there are items that are already easily available in China. They're not popular in the US yet, right? Or maybe they're popular in like a home decor world. Like Joanna Gaines hasn't shown it yet in her collection and gotten it, to blow up. Go ahead and start getting some of this stuff in place and wait for it to hit. You can check market demand on these products that aren't even on Amazon and be ready when they do go big. Elio, let's see, Barbara.
I'm going to go ahead and share a screen with all of our contact information, but your face will still be up so that people can start asking questions in the Facebook group too, so we can continue the conversation after the webinar. So keep talking, but I wanted to let you know I'm sharing the screen.
All right, somebody asked me about Helium-10. Do you know how much the cost is for Cerebro? So Helium-10 comes in packages, and there are multiple packages. They have like a free package to start with that kind of gives you a test, like all these software companies do. Then they have like a gold, platinum, and diamond. One of them is $99 a month. One of them's $200 a month. One of them's, I think, $400 a month. The middle road, the $200 one, $200 a month is what I use. It's perfect. And I actually have a coupon code for that. If anybody wants to go and sign up for Helium-10, it's not like a year contract. You can just get in there and play with it. Sign up for the platinum and use the coupon code TIMJ, T-I-M-J, no spaces, and it gets you 50% off. So basically what it does is it gives you the platinum package for the same price as gold. So it's $99 a month. And there's a lot of other features in there besides Cerebro. There's like 12 features. Cerebro is the one that we use the most for research. It is the best software that I found on the market, but use that promo code and get 50% off. Tim J. I have let's see, another question. I have a small product that's selling on my website. Label has the name of the product. Can I just put these in the box to Amazon? Do I have to take it off? No. Quit thinking of yourself as a private label seller and think of yourself as a product producer. There's no way that any of these big name brands would take their website off their packaging, right? No, just leave it on the packaging. Think of yourself as a brand selling on Amazon as opposed to a private label seller using Amazon, right? Any of this name brand stuff out there has the website on the package. Amazon does not care. They just don't want you being spammy. Like they don't want you putting inserts and stickers all over it. Just make it look professional. They will not care. Yeah, multiple times I've wanted an item on Amazon and it hasn't been there. Go see if you can source it and sell it. Let's see. Talked about pay-per-click. Okay. How do you compare Amazon.com versus UK? You can't. It is impossible. It's the same reason you can't compare US to Canada. The demographics are different. The market is different. But what I will do sometimes, instead of trying to compare like search volume or demand on each, what I will do is actually go in and find, like if there's let's say there's a product that I think is in demand in the US, there's not a listing for it, I'll go over to the UK and see if it is available there. If it is available there, then I know there's a factory making it and it should be a whole lot easier to source. And I can backtrack through import documents and stuff, who the supplier is in China. Or I will actually call up the seller in the UK, see if I can buy a case or two to test over here. I'm not telling them what I'm doing, but then you're letting them go all through the development work. And you can buy maybe, even if it's not a case, just buy 10 items from them on Amazon UK and have it shipped over here, which you can do through a third party, and test it before you jump in too deep. Cerebro, can you explain about Cerebro? Just go to Helium-10's website. They've got really good intro videos on that. Do you have a discount code for Cerebro? Yes, it's Tim J. There it is. Somebody's got that up there.
Hey, just so we don't get too much off track of talking about details of any particular tool, does anybody have any other ideas of case studies? Have you seen some products that have just taken off, or brands that have taken off that you want us to dig in a little bit? We've got about 10 minutes left. Let's talk about some case studies of professional or successful launches and successful brands. Anybody have any ideas, things that they've seen out there that they'd like to know? Well, how did that work? Or do you have another case study you'd like to cover, Tim?
I've got a list of them. I don't want to jump in because we're about to run out of time.
We've got 10 minutes left. Let's do one more, fingerlings. Let's do one more case study because I want to make sure we're giving a ton of value on this particular topic. And all questions related outside of the case studies, go ahead and put them in the Facebook group. You can go to facebook.com/group/DealDiva and do a post in there, and we'll get in there and answer questions. So Tim, go ahead and share another case study. I'll stop sharing my screen.
Then let's talk about magnet tile blocks. Okay, everybody familiar with what magnet tile blocks are? Yep. I assume. The magnet tile blocks are something that I saw in China about, 2 years ago. I did the same thing. I thought, man, this is going to be garbage. No, there's no demand on Amazon. What I wasn't looking at was that there was massive amounts of demand in the STEM market, right? STEM. It's that educational toy market. And there are other products that were starting to trend up with magnets. So I was boneheaded and didn't see the potential in that, or I could have been on page one. With the magnet tile blocks, the guys that were doing well on that had about 2 years before anybody caught on. So when I say it wasn't doing well on Amazon, it was because there was 1 or 2 sellers. And I said, well, if there's only 1 or 2 sellers, then it must not be a big demand. And of course, I don't trust stuff like Jungle Scout to check ranking and sales volume. So I just dismissed it. Those 2 guys that were like fighting for page one were selling these kits that they were paying about $2 to have produced, and were absolutely killing it with like 3,000 and 4,000 and 5,000 units sold a month. What they were doing was they were actually driving, or they weren't even driving traffic. They were tracking the traffic for these STEM toys on like blogs, STEM blogs, educational toy blogs, what's really for homeschool blogs, right? And it turned out to be really, really a big deal. The 2 guys that were in there 2 years ago are still like spots 1 and 2. Sometimes they get bumped up by someone doing one of those rocket ship launches and it just disappear. So at any given time, they might fall into spots 2 or 3, but they've been consistently selling for 3 years. None of those guys created that. The two US guys that were selling that. The way that they actually found them is it is common toy in India made out of wood. Okay. So they take these wood blocks, they put these little magnet strips on them, and they're all over the place. So I don't know how these guys found this, but I have since, done some research on those magnet tiles, and literally 50 years ago, people that lived in India remember playing with these things. So all they did is they took this idea from somewhere else. It's not on Amazon. It's not in the US. And they just reverse engineered it. So they called up a sourcing company like Hickory Flats and said, hey, I've got these wood things. Can you reproduce this? Sure, we can get this made in plastic with the magnets built in. And of course, variations start evolving from there. But the magnet tile blocks were mega successful. It's not something they invented. It's not something they even came up with the idea for. And last time I checked, magnet tile blocks is now getting, or magna blocks or magnet tiles, in December of this past year was getting around 170,000 searches a month just in the top 3 keyword variations. Massive. I have clients that were trying to sell those things, couldn't keep them in stock. They buy 2,000 or 3,000 items. They'd be on page 4, page 5, page 6, and still sell out in like 2 weeks. Really, really cool. So that's another example of something that has been out there for a long time. It's not unique. It's not anything that people are creating from, scratch. Now they're just repurposing it and relaunching it. And the people that are losing money on that are the ones that saw the first 10 guys successful at it, and then they jumped in. They're playing follow the leader that turned into caboose. But that, again, I know I keep going back to China. Literally saw that 2 or 3 years ago, made a poor decision, said, oh, there can't be any demand on this because I didn't know what I know now. Like, I've learned a lot of lessons and figured out a lot of mistakes I was making. But that demand was out there. It just wasn't on Amazon yet. Search things like Google Trends. See what people are searching for on Google, because a lot of people, if they don't even think a product exists, they won't go to Amazon. They go to Google Trends and figure out, hey, what is this thing that I heard of? And Google Trends usually has a lot more trend data spiking probably 6 or 9 months before people even start looking for it on Amazon. So start using some of those tools off of Amazon and see if you can find anything. Go ahead and put that question in the Facebook group. That's a lot longer answer. Okay, Michelle. Yeah, actually, Michelle, I'll give you the short version of that. How do you track traffic from blogs? You actually have to use Google. Google can check that stuff. So there's a lot of tools, a lot of plugins that you can get on your Google browser that actually check how many unique visits to a site and how long they stay on that site. But I can get more into that later. All right, we are very nearly at an hour. So yeah, that was just another quick example of items that, have been out there for a long time.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Great. I appreciate you pulling that out of your hat. That was unscripted. Hey, folks, you're going to have more questions because there's so much content to cover in topics like this. Nothing, we can't cover all in this webinar, but we are doing another webinar that's going to go into really nitty-gritty deep dive, and that's tomorrow. Make sure you sign up. I'll send an email. Tim's sending out an email, and the link is also in the chat. And also, you can join my Ecom Insights newsletter to get updates as we produce more content. And you can also ask all of your questions in the facebook.com/group/DealDiva and contact Tim Jordan, sorry, I'm speaking too quickly, directly at hickory-flats.com. And you can email sales@hickory-flats.com. Or Tim, do you have another email address you'd like them to send information?
No, send to that one. If they send it to me directly, I might miss it, and then I feel bad. So I got all these folks back here that keep me straight on that sales email. So send to there.
Love it. And tomorrow we're going to be doing another webinar, and we've got replays that are going to be sent out. They're going to be available all on one page. Give me the weekend to get it set up. I'll send you guys an email out after the weekend, and you'll be able to see all of the replays for all three of these next week. But be sure you sign up. The link is above in the chat for tomorrow's webinar as well, and I'll send out a link so you can see everything. Hey, thanks, guys, for being on here. Appreciate it so much for you taking your time today, Tim, to share your information with us.
Yeah, and tomorrow's going to be really cool, guys. Tomorrow I'm literally going to screen share and go in deep dive into exactly how I attack some of these online marketplaces, offline marketplaces, like literally going to share my screen on the exact path that I go through. I'm just calling dibs. If while I'm doing this I find one killer idea, all of you have to promise to leave me alone, let me run with it for 6 months.
That sounds awesome. Hey, Colby's asking what is the link for the training by Tim. I will send out a link via email. You are signed up for the email list. I'll send that out so you guys will have it by very latest next Tuesday, where you have all of this training recorded. You can rewatch it and pause and take notes, etc. My name is Barbara Drazga with Ecom Insights and Bundle Masterclass, and I am going to be a part of the mastermind team going to on the China trip with Tim and his team to Yiwu Market, Shanghai and Yiwu Market in September. So you'll also get access to my training during that trip, and you can go find out more details about the trip at hickory-flats.com. And tomorrow we're going to announce some more information about that, as well as give a ton of content in the next webinar. Thank you, Tim, so much for being here.
No problem.
Go join us on Facebook, and we'll see you in the next webinar.
All right.
Thanks,
Take care, everybody. Have a good day. See you tomorrow.